Welcome to Cyber Bytes, the podcast. I'm your host, Stefan Foley, Senior Recruitment Consultant at Aspiron Search. Today I'm joined by Amjed Aboukhadijeh, Head of Sales at Socket. Amjed shares his journey from an IC to sales leadership, vision with Socket, and winning sales strategies. Enjoy. Amjed, absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. How's things?
Likewise, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Things are good. It's first thing in the morning here in California, so love getting the day started like this. Can't complain.
Good stuff. So what's that, 7 a.m. for you? Early start?
Yeah, just a few minutes past 7. Yep.
Good stuff. Well, yeah, it is great to have you on the podcast. And the way I like to kick off these pods is understanding how you got to where you are. So are you able to just start by giving our listeners a brief around your background and where you're up to at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I get started, since I know this is being recorded on video, there's a map behind me, and I just want to make it clear that I do know that Africa is supposed to touch Asia. But every time I close my office door, it shakes and one of the continents falls off the wall. So I've had to re-glue it on probably about 10 times. And the last time I kind of just got sick of trying to connect everything. So I just put it back in a hurry. So just before you get any comments that, hey, this guy doesn't know his geography, I just want to make it clear that I am aware that the two continents should be touching. So with that, like you mentioned, my name is Amjed. My last name is Aboukhadijeh. Currently, I'm the head of sales at Socket. Our website is socket.dev if anybody is interested in checking us out. We are in the cybersecurity space. Essentially, what we do is we look for malicious dependencies that developers could potentially be introducing to their company through the open source packages that they're finding and using. So we'll do a quick scan and we'll, in a very nice way, tell the developer, hey, it looks like there's some potential risks within this package you're using. You might either want to double check your work, or in some cases we say, do not proceed. This is malicious. You do not want to use this package. So that's what we do as a company. We've been around for about a couple of years now, and we're starting to see some pretty good growth in the past, I would say 6 or so months. So yeah, it's just a very exciting time.
Right. And the background of yourself, I think listeners would be keen to know this. So you started out as an IC, right, in sales, and then have transitioned to head of sales at Socket. Can you talk us through the early stages of your background and how you got into sales in the first place?
Yeah, I'd love to. So you're absolutely correct. I was an IC for quite a long time, and then just recently, when I joined Socket, kind of moved into sales leadership. But to kind of rewind, even before I was an IC, I can give you kind of an idea of how I stumbled into software sales in the first place, because it definitely was not a straight line path. So I'll kind of go back to university. I studied at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. And I was actually a two-sport athlete at the school as well. So I competed in both cross country and track and field for the university. So I was kind of like a middle distance to long distance runner. My specialty was the 1500 meter, if there's any runners out there. So it's more or less a mile distance, and all the way up to like the 5 kilometers. So, I took running very seriously. At that time, it was essentially my whole life. It was every morning, 6 a.m. practices. The whole day would kind of revolve around it. When do I eat? When do I take naps? My class schedule kind of fit in between that. And it was awesome. I loved it. When I got to like my junior year in college, I started to think a little bit more seriously about, what am I going to do after college for like an actual career? Obviously, I had the same aspirations that a lot of, Division I athletes have, which is, I want to be a professional runner. I want to be in the Olympics. I want to get sponsored by Nike and the likes. But the reality is, in long distance running, it's number one, extremely difficult, as is being a professional athlete in any sport. But number two, even if you do make it to those ranks, you don't make a lot of money. And it's a sad truth, but it really is. You can see some of the most incredible athletes, hardly scraping by. And And I didn't have a lot of interest in doing that. I was passionate about it, but not in that way. And so I started to think, okay, what am I going to do for my career? And then it kind of occurred to me that like I wasn't a huge fan of school. I was a decent student, but there was no like path that was very straightforward to me. I didn't want to be an engineer. I didn't want to go and continue on and do additional education. I didn't want to go to grad school and the likes. And so I started to think like, okay, what am I good at? And what I always kind of got brought back to was like whenever there was a class presentation, an area where I tended to thrive was on the presenting portion, and not so much thrive, but something I just enjoyed was I enjoyed actually presenting the project to the class. So like the way it would work is, we'd get an assignment from the professor. It would be, hey, summarize this book or whatever the project was. And then, you'd get broken up into a small group. Well, there were so many folks that they wanted to do all of the work except for the presentation. They had no problem building the poster board, doing the research, writing the essay. But they said, oh my God, I don't want to present to the class. And for me, it could not have been more opposite. Like, I am like, okay, go ahead. You can do the project. Tell me, give me the summary, give me the cliff notes, and then I'll go and present it. And what I found is that, I got a little bit of nerves like everybody does when you present, but I really enjoyed it. And so I thought that maybe a career in sales would make the most sense for me. So when I graduated, the way it worked was I actually moved up to the Bay Area. That's like the San Francisco kind of Bay, Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, with my best friend at the time. I had no job offers. I didn't go to any career fairs or anything like that. I had a couple $1,000 to my name. And my friend and we found shelter in this guy's shed in the back of his house in Palo Alto. So he actually rented us his shed for $600, that's USD, per month each. So he was making $1,200 a month on this shed that was, I'm not kidding you, it was 185 square feet. So it was tiny. And so basically, there was no bathroom, no shower, no bathroom, no kitchen, nothing like that. And so what my buddy and I did is we woke up every morning, we would go to the gym across the street. We had a membership, we would shower, do a quick workout, and then the rest of the day we'd be at, a cafe or Starbucks or something like that. And we would just start applying for jobs. After several months of doing that and kind of just like figuring out how to network, I was able to get my first job at Oracle, where I came in as a very entry level kind of a sales rep. So that was kind of like the summarized version. There's a lot of funny stories in there. We can talk about them another time, but that's kind of how I got started.
Nice. And I just want to add one thing there. So it's right. Am I correct in saying that you've run a 4-minute mile? Just got to add that in. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So 4:07. For non-runners, you can probably round down to 4 minutes to make it sound more impressive. But for real runners out there, they'll know that difference in 7 seconds is pretty substantial. But yeah, I ran 4:07 in the mile.
Cool. Yes, it's a super interesting background that you have. And what I'm keen to dive into is how you've taken that IC level role, very entry role, and slowly progressed to where you are now, head of sales at Socket. Could you share, maybe to start with, a success story, some of the success stories you've had as an IC at previous organizations?
Yeah, totally. So, I think like for me, when I got that first role at Oracle, it became very apparent to me, even within the first 3 to 4 months of starting the job, that I wanted to make a career in software sales. I really loved it. I saw the potential. I kind of saw the upward mobility, and it's a very unique field to be in because it's like I said, it's not something that you necessarily go to college and study for. A lot of it is effort based. The time you put in to kind of perfect your craft. Very similar to long distance running, actually, where it's delayed gratification. You work and work and work, and maybe 6 months to 12 months later, you close one of these large deals and you make your number. So I really like that aspect of it. So that was kind of the first thing I had going in my corner, was that I actually enjoyed what I was doing. But I took some pretty strategic moves in the first, I would say, half decade to maybe 3/4 of a decade in my career that kind of led me to moving into this leadership position. So I think one thing you see a lot of times often is people get comfortable they'll go and get a job at a big company. It's got benefits, it's got some nice perks to it. Maybe it's easy. You're used to the process, and they kind of just camp out there. And I actually strive to do the exact opposite. So I wanted to put myself in as many uncomfortable situations as possible, try to learn and sell different products, because that's really when you figure out what kind of a seller you are. And so I started to move to smaller and smaller companies. I kind of started at Oracle, which is essentially as big as you can get. And then I went to like 1,000-person company. And then I went to maybe 100-person company. And then I actually got to the point where I joined a company that I think I was like the 11th or 12th person that joined the company, where I was the first sales hire. So each time I made a jump, I had to sell myself in the interview process and say, here's what I'm going to accomplish in my first 100 days. And then when I got the job, I had to back it up. And so I was, forced in this uncomfortable situation where I'm, continuously, trying to live up to, the expectations that my leadership had for me. And so I learned how to ramp up very quickly. I learned how to kind of, take the sales process and apply it to different products. And I think it all kind of came to fruition when I was in my last role at Google Cloud, where I was in a perfect situation. The timing was right. I got to sell to the largest customers at Google. I was about a decade into my sales career, so I had a lot of experience in running deal cycles. And I was able to, make President's Club 2 years back to back.
Nice.
And also, from my knowledge, according to my VP, closed the most logos closed in a single year in Google Cloud. So for my division. So I was in a kind of it was between corporate and enterprise division. And I had actually closed almost on average a deal a month. So I closed 11 logos in 12 months, which at the time I think was kind of a big deal. So yep, that's pretty much kind of the trajectory of me as an IC.
And you touched on one point there around how having that semi-pro running background and that late gratification, right? You don't see it instantly. And I think a lot of people go into sales and they're 3 months in, they're like, I'm not getting any results, I'm not making any money, and they kind of maybe ditch it. That sounds like it was one of your key or one of your attributes that made you successful. What other attributes would you say have been instrumental to you being successful and getting yourself into a leadership position?
Yeah, that's completely correct. There's a quote I love from one of my favorite books, and the quote goes, the person that does more than he's paid for will soon be paid for more than he does. And you can't summarize sales in a better way than that, in my opinion. Those first couple of years, I spent countless hours like getting mentorship and shadowing calls of the top sellers. And what I focused on more so than my W-2 was, am I getting better at my skills? Like, are my skills getting better? Am I getting more comfortable in these meetings? Am I getting better at objection handling? And so I really focused on developing my skills so that I knew how to run an evaluation. I mean, so many times, people think it's the flashy cold call and, it's all about timing and it's luck, and it's not at all, right? I've closed some deals where, I had 4 or 5 no's before they agreed to do a POC, or a proof of concept, proof of value, whatever you want to call it. And then it ended up becoming one of my largest deals that I had closed. And so, there's a little bit of grit, there's a little bit of patience kind of involved in this. That took time to learn. The other thing I would say, if I were to give advice for something that kind of made a big differentiation, in terms of like ability to sell and close, is really focusing on like correlating the value of your product to the cost that you're charging and being able to quantify that. Like I can't say enough about the skill that it takes to actually quantify the work that you did in an evaluation and make it easy for your champions to go and sell this internally. Especially in the economy that we have today, where, companies are scrutinizing every dollar that's being spent. And I'd be happy to elaborate on that. But I would say that's probably one of the biggest things I've seen, that the best sellers do.
Yeah. I was going to say, are you able to give maybe a scenario, an example of that last point there? Because I feel like that's super powerful. Value is so hard to demonstrate and get to your customers, and people, I don't think, especially in sales, that's maybe a point they struggle to do, is demonstrate that. So is there maybe a scenario example that you can share that people could replicate, use?
Yeah, totally. I hate buzzwords, but you hear it in sales all the time. Time kills all deals. But I've seen firsthand that is very true. And what I think that means really is the time that you keep the evaluation going. Usually when people start an evaluation, they have kind of high hopes for this problem you're going to solve for them. And the longer it goes on, you kind of lose some of that momentum, you lose some of that excitement. And so implementing strategies to shorten that deal cycle down to as quick as you can usually leads to better results. And so like everything I do in my POC process is revolved around that. So I can give you a few examples. So say I, had an intro conversation with a customer, I do my demo, I get them kind of initially excited. And, I'll kind of fast forward. I've done all the discovery. I've gotten to the point where, they want to do a proof of concept or a proof of value. Great. Oftentimes what happens is you schedule that proof of value conversation, you get on the meeting, and then you try to actually go and get your application installed and get the process started. And you find out that the person you're working with doesn't have the permissions to install the app, or they have to go seek an additional approval. And so something I, developed was like a checklist, a POC checklist. So it sounds very straightforward, but hey, here's everything we need on that, to get started with the POC. So, hey, we need someone with, GitHub permissions that can actually install an application. Here's the different folks that we need involved. So you can share that with them to make sure that they have all the right folks on the call. That's step one. Now you're on the POC. You can't just say, okay, great, let's install the app and then let us know what you think. You need to be very clear about, here are the goals you told us. You said these are the 3-4 things you're trying to accomplish. So I took the liberty to turn those goals into a checklist of items that you can evaluate during this next 2-3 weeks that are going to check off all of these goals that you had. And so we create a checklist for them, and it's very simple. It's like a drop down, is this complete? Is this incomplete? Is this out of scope? Are you blocked? And that way, when we meet with them, for check-in calls 2 or 3 times during the POC, we can go through that checklist together. Hey, it sounds like this past week, you checked off all these things. That's wonderful. So you can kind of, keep the process going. And then at the end of and that kind of serves 2 purposes. Number one, like I said, it kind of aligns it directly to their goals. But number 2, it actually helps your champion go and sell this internally better, because they're not just going to their boss or to procurement saying, hey, I need a $50,000 budget for this product because I think this product is cool. It's, hey, all of those things, this product is cool and I need this budget, but also look at all the work I did to evaluate it. Like, this is working. I've tested it. It's going to work in our environment. And then the last thing I've kind of done that has made a big dent in terms of conversion rate is I provide them with a summary document. So after the POC is done, let's summarize, in a nice document, everything that we accomplished. So let's start with the business need. Let's remind them, hey, here's the business need. Here is the scope of the POC that we evaluated. Here's the scope of the project. Put screenshots in. Here's where you went through and you showed that Socket, detected this issue. You don't have any other tool that's detecting this issue. Let's quantify that. How much could this issue be worth? Well, look at how many, repositories it's installed on. Look at the time it would have taken you to remediate this issue. Quantifying that all into a nice summary document so that your champion, when they go up to their meeting to present to their leadership, they have, this project, and, you allow them to make it their own. So it looks like they presented it themselves. And, they can customize it and do all that kind of stuff. And so what you're doing is you're just kind of leaving ambiguity out of it. You're keeping it very aligned. And you can, it's a very straightforward process that you can continually tweak. So I would say those are probably a couple things that I've done that have made a huge difference. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful and very powerful. As you say, they kind of sound simple, but they're so effective, as you say. And they champion their own reasoning then, and they present that back to leadership as their own champion. Makes sense. Right. Cool. And moving on to Socket, the audience is probably keen to hear about Socket and the achievements that you guys have had. So I'm correct in saying Series A, right, at the moment. Was it around 20 million?
Exactly, 20 million. Yep.
Cool. You did cover it at the start, but I'm keen to dive a little bit deeper into what Socket does, and the core product that it serves and how it serves your customers.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So we have, like I mentioned, we're in the cybersecurity space. Essentially, what we're doing is we're looking at all of the open source dependencies that developers are using, and we're protecting them from using a malicious dependency or a dependency that has, something risky inside it that you would not want to be running in production for your company. And so if we just kind of back up and like look at the overall kind of landscape of the software, development lifecycle and like why this is such a big problem. Something that's very interesting is if you look at the average application today, you'll find that 80 to 90% of the lines of code inside the application are actually made up of open source. Yeah. And so it's an amazing thing. I don't want to, give off the vibe that, we think open source is, bad or anything like that. It's incredible. Actually, our entire team is made up of open source developers. So we really believe firsthand the kind of the power of open source. And we see that, right? I mean, that's how people are able to build features faster. They don't have to write everything from scratch. And so that's kind of the landscape. But what's interesting is that, maybe of the code that's actually proprietary, written by your own developers in-house, it might only be 10 or 20%, but there is an incredible review process that takes place to ensure that that code is safe. And so what does that mean? That means if a developer wants to write something in-house, it has to go to a manager approval. Maybe somebody in application security has to look at it. There's all this, process and kind of guardrails in place to make sure that the developer doesn't do something that's bad. But it's kind of ironic because we're focusing so much on making sure our own employees aren't doing something poorly. But then when we go and grab an open source package that can be written by a random person out in the world that we have no idea of who they are, the strategy has always been, oh, that's fine. Let's just grab one and hope for the best. And so it's kind of backwards. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it safer for people to use open source. And we're very cognizant of making sure that it fits into the developer's workflow so that it doesn't slow them down from their job. Because traditionally, engineering and security, engineers are typically allergic to security tools. I mean, they just want to, build features and ship features fast, and anything that kind of slows down their process is usually perceived as a negative in the mind of a developer. Not always, but, often. And so we wanted to make a tool that fit perfectly into their workflow and only alerted them if something very critical was detected. So that's a big differentiator because most tools are very noisy. And they'll tell you, hey, there's these 20 things that you got to look at. And when you actually go and look at them, maybe 95% of them aren't actual true security risks, or they're not even applicable in your own internal code base. And so we've done a really good job of kind of reducing the noise of the alerts we send to just the most critical ones.
Right. No, I love it. And you mentioned you're the first sales hire, right? At Socket?
Correct. Yep.
So talk to me about how you're scaling or looking to scale the team and potentially some of the challenges that you've run into as a result of that. Because I presume you have a sales function right now at Socket?
Right.
Cool. Yeah. Talk us through that.
Yeah. So we, when I joined, we had no customers, no revenue, no logos, nothing. But we had a really good product, really good idea. And we did kind of release our product. It's like a PLG model. So, it was free to install. And we did have quite a lot of adoption in terms of folks that, saw the value. And so I think we had something in the effect of like 1,500 installations from different organizations in the first 30 days. So it was pretty substantial. And then what we wanted to focus on was like, okay, the first step is we need to find design partners. We need to find folks that want to be on this journey with us, help us construct our product, make sure it's meeting their needs. And until you really get under the hood with customers and understand like the challenges they're having, you could take your roadmap in 100 different ways. And so we wanted to make sure that, our roadmap was making the biggest bang on, the market as we could. And so that was step one. Once we did that, great, we checked it off. The next step was, okay, let's go and get, our early adopters, right? Let's go get folks that now, we've built a really good product around these design partners, and let's go and try to get them, to use the product and get value out of it. Can we get someone to pay for this? Was really what we were trying to test. And we had quite a bit of success doing that. And I think really some of the reasons for that are, like I mentioned, again, we're doing something that's different in terms of our analysis. We're not just telling you about mild issues. We're really going deep into our analysis and preventing supply chain attacks from happening because we're able to block malicious dependencies from getting into your code base. We're also a very easy installation process. So it's a 3-click installation to get started with Socket, which is rare for a security tool. I think most people are kind of accustomed to these long 2, 3, 6-month implementations in some ways. And so, for a security tool to get this type of adoption in a short amount of time, is something we're very excited about. And so to your point, we went and we raised a Series A round of funding.
Yeah.
We're being very careful about how we hire people. We don't, want to become, a company that you turn every corner and you see a billboard or, you see marketing fluff, and then that's not what we want to do. In fact, if you haven't heard of Socket, it's not surprising to me because we're very, like I said, we're very I don't want to say anti-marketing, but we don't do the traditional marketing. Our founder was a prolific open source maintainer, so he does podcasts. We generate leads that way. And truly, I think we're growing by mostly word of mouth because people are finding, the value that we're providing. And so in terms of growing the sales team, our team right now is about 4 people.
Nice.
I think we'll probably double that going into 2024, give or take. But really it just depends on, what we see in the market and how necessary it is.
Yeah, I love it. Cool. And I think to wrap up, I guess one last question from my side is to people that listen to this, maybe sales ICs, that they're looking to take that step up into leadership, or maybe that's on their progression plan over the next few years. What piece of advice, if you look back, you're talking to yourself 10 years ago, what pieces of advice would you give to those sales ICs looking to potentially pursue a career in sales leadership?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually think about that all the time. I think about how could I, how could I be better at what I do and all that. I would kind of go back to something I talked about a little bit earlier, which is really focus on the steps that it takes to win an enterprise deal. I mean, if your ambitions are to, grow into sales leadership, be an early sales hire at a startup company, work up market and close, these large enterprise deals, it's a completely different type of sale than, a transactional, small business deal. And so there are a lot of, steps that you take that are different in that process. And so really focusing on getting good at those processes and, how to run an evaluation, I think is very key, to the success of a rep. And then, you have to get enough cycles at it. So something I'm proud of that I did in my career is I didn't jump at the first opportunity to move into management when I was at a company. I mean, I probably could have stayed at one of these startups and, been a manager maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. But I didn't feel like I was as good of an IC as I could have been. And so I really wanted to focus on, being the best seller possible first, before I moved into management, because now I can actually train people and, I can actually help throughout the process. I'm not necessarily, figuring things out with people, with different reps on the job. I'm actually able to come with, stories and examples of how things have worked in the past.
Cool.
So I would say that. And then if the last piece of the last thing I would mention, which, probably can merit an entire 30-minute discussion on, but I'll just kind of leave you with this is, it all starts with your territory management plan. So when you start off the year, you're given a territory, whether it's 100 accounts to go chase, or it's a zip code or a specific, geographical location. How you manage that territory is very telling of how successful you'll be in the year. I mean, if you, in that first 30 days, you should know exactly, okay, what are the deals that I need to focus my time on? Create a scoring system. Where are our highest potential targets? We can look at similar customers. We can look at, do we support their programming languages? Yeah. Are they in a geographical location we've had success with? Whatever the reasons are, do we have a mutual investor? Mm-hmm. And create a scoring system there, and then go deep into those accounts. Yeah. Don't stop at the first no. And that's something that I think is a makeup of a successful IC.
Yeah, great advice. And yeah, a good point to finish on. And if any of our audience want to get in touch regards Socket, or even potentially joining Socket, who should they contact? What's the best way of reaching you guys?
Yeah, so you get two options. You can send your resume to work@socket.dev. But if you're a seller and you're interested in chatting about it, you can actually just reach out to me on LinkedIn directly. So I'm pretty sure I'm the only Amjed Aboukhadijeh in the world. So you could probably find me pretty easily by pasting my name into LinkedIn. So yeah, send me a message on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to chat. And that's pretty much my main method of social media, I guess, these days.
Yeah, cool. Well, Amjed, again, pleasure to have you on the pod. Yeah, really interesting chat. Yeah, thanks again. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Of course, thanks so much, Stefan. I really appreciate the time, and yeah, hopefully people find value in this.